Hello, welcome back to the Fighting Cock YouTube channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different. This week I was invited onto TalkSport 2 to talk about all things Spurs, a little bit about the Chelsea and Tottenham fallout. Another video is coming on that shortly. But we also spoke about Arteta's behaviour this week and how he has made a point of attacking referees and VAR and everything in between. And generally think that, bias aside, and obviously I am a Spurs fan, I'm always going to talk from a biased perspective, can't help that. But I think his behaviour this week has been embarrassing. And the fact that Arsenal fans are willfully backing him, and moreover the club are willfully backing his comments in the cold light of day, and moreover that 2 days after he made the comment, he doubled down on it and talked about sporting integrity and all that sort of stuff, made it all the more infuriating. The reality is that what happened at Newcastle was subjective. The ball wasn't over the line, and if it was difficult to tell. So you have to give it to the attacking team. The push was a 50-50. Sometimes that could be given. Sometimes it's not given. So that is also subjective. And those really were the only two things that were worth talking about. There was no offside there either. So the goals pretty much should have stood. And even if it hadn't stood, you wouldn't have seen Newcastle fans and Eddie Howe behaving the way that Arteta has. And fundamentally, I think that what Arteta has done and how he's behaved doesn't move the needle towards positivity. In fact, it creates an environment where referees are less able to make the right decisions. And maybe Arteta is actually, this isn't about the betterment of the game. Maybe it's about him, planting something in referees' head that when they referee Arsenal's games, that they do it in favour of Arsenal, give them the advantage. Maybe that's what it's about, and he's just disguising it as an attempt to improve refereeing in the Premier League. Whatever it is, I'm not sure. It is insanely irritating and does damage the situation somewhat. Anyway, we're on TalkSport 2 earlier this week to talk about this very thing, and here's the clip. Enjoy.
Listen, obviously he's not happy at all. Do you know what annoyed me about all of this the most, right, is, listen, I can understand him being passionate after the game. I can also see why he is annoyed with that goal being given. I do think it's quite subjective.
Yes.
And I know I'm a Newcastle fan. Obviously, I'm going to look at it through black and white tinted glasses. But, is the ball out? There's not a definitive angle. You've got to go with the on-field decision. Could be a foul. I actually thought when they were showing it, it could have been handball. It wasn't. And then he isn't offside. So it's actually just the foul that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Right? What really annoyed me is after the game, he did his press conference and he's there saying it's a disgrace, it's embarrassing, all this. And he was asked multiple times, sorry, so, Mikel, what part of the goal were you annoyed with? Was it the offside? Was it the ball?
Yeah.
He just refused to answer it.
But because he can't answer, that's why. His reaction was because he was disappointed something happened to his football team that he couldn't control. And that his inability to handle his disappointment led him to have an outburst.
Yeah.
And just going back to that clip in terms of, talking about how he felt that there was this that he was doing the right thing for the game, and that he always has to be honest, and he always has to be to say what he feels. All those things are subjective as well. You're not, just because you're being honest doesn't mean you're right. Just because you're saying what you're feeling doesn't mean you're in the correct position. So it's irrelevant, really, what he says and thinks.
He was kind of saying it as if he was saying it on behalf of the entire league, or something like that. It was a bit bizarre. But in a way, right, if you do strip this all back, does he have a point that this does need to be looked at a bit closer? And actually, should we see clubs from across the board, rather than me and you sitting here going, oh, shut up, you crybaby, should it actually be clubs from across the league kind of joining in and going, right, we really need to sort this issue out?
I'm not suggesting there isn't an issue or there isn't a way we can ameliorate this situation, but it's by doing it by proper discourse and behaving in the correct manner and not actually damaging the cause by ranting and raving like Arteta did. Like I said earlier, that you could unionise this to some degree and get all the managers and clubs together, or better still, the chairman, together, and have a combined letter and with wording that's agreed across the parties, so there is a unified approach to the problem, not just when something bad happens to my football club, I'm going to cry and moan after a game. And Klopp did the same thing. it can't be just when things have happened, because it has no weight, because you're upset. And you might be upset for good reason, but there's no value in that moment. When all of it calms down, there should be a meeting and an agreed approach to deal with this. And in a way that the referees are also human beings and not, their back's not up.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that approach is? You mentioned that different. Is that Howard Webb sitting down with all the Premier League managers? How do you think that looks?
In the first instance, it's a meeting between owners or managers, probably managers, right?
Yeah.
Because they have these meetings, they have managerial meetings all the time, and it's a organised way of communicating with the referees, and that might be a letter that isn't published, that doesn't go into the public domain, that merely tries to get to a better alternative to what we have right now. And once they've agreed a process to making this situation better with the referee and VAR, then they can publish it, and then it can be discussed, and then if need be, amended.
Yeah.
But it cannot just be screaming and shouting because something's gone against you.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. By the way, my favourite meme of the weekend that came out of this, I just have to bring it up because it made me laugh so much. Obviously, there was so many Arsenal fans. I've honestly never seen a meltdown like it on Twitter from the Arsenal fans. It was quite brilliant to watch, obviously, as a Newcastle fan. My favourite one was these fans going, "What a disgrace, the goal shouldn't be allowed, ridiculous." And someone had just put, "Oh, all right then, no worries."
Yeah.
And they just put, they did a picture and it said Newcastle 1, Arsenal 3, goal, ball was out of play, goal, offside, goal, foul, and Arsenal won the game 3-1. That's what annoyed me about Arteta. Newcastle were brilliant in that game, and I think overall, maybe it was on the edge, but I think Newcastle just edged it anyway.
But any good work Newcastle have done is completely overshadowed by how Arteta has behaved.
There we go.
It was the exact same thing with Tottenham versus Liverpool.
Yeah.
They became the narrative. It's like, oh, well, this isn't going our way. Let's make this about us again. And from the other fans that were involved, the 50% of the other fans involved in this game, i.e. the other team, it's like they don't exist.
Yeah.
Because you made it about you.
Yeah.
Just be quiet.
By the way, what a feisty game that was as well. Like, I mean, this actually goes back, I think, to like well, Newcastle beat them in the season that they stayed up, and that stopped Arsenal getting fourth. That's probably where it all started.
And last year you stopped Arsenal getting fourth, wasn't it? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. That
Sorry.
was the first season when Howard come in. Then there was a 0-0, and it was so feisty. I actually think it's a really weird one because as fans, I don't think before that game, you want to beat Arsenal, but it wasn't like, I hate Arsenal.
This happens.
These players hate each other. You can tell on the pitch.
Well, last year, Newcastle's win, the year before last, where Guimaraes scored. You scored 2 in the last 10 minutes, and really battered Arsenal at Newcastle, and that was when he kind of felt like, what do Arsenal have the minerals to really crack on? And as a result, they did. They finished second the year after, but that result, a Newcastle result, meant that Spurs finished above them and finished fourth fundamentally. But yeah, this is what happens when two clubs are essentially battling in the same position. There forms rivalries. And yeah, Newcastle and Arsenal, there does seem to be something bubbling under the surface.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And do you know who's at the heart of it, which I love? Jason Tindall. He's right at the heart of it. He was getting shushed by Kai Havertz. He was arguing with Arteta throughout the whole game. Absolutely love you, Mad Dog. You're brilliant. This is The Social on TalkSport 2 with me, Ollie Klink.
So there you go. That's my thoughts on the Arteta situation. Let us know in the comments below what you think about Arteta and how he's behaving this week. Just so you know, we'll be back on TalkSport 2 more regularly this season, and don't worry, we'll be pushing the Tottenham agenda. But that's it for now. I'll keep an eye out for the Tottenham and Chelsea video coming out very soon.